Today I wanted to talk to you about one of the most common mistakes that I see ex-Muslims make when they try to set boundaries with their family. So one of the things that can often happen is they communicate the boundary to their family. Now that might be something like, I'm not going to visit you once a week anymore. I'm not going to call you daily anymore. It could be something like that. To bigger things, I'm no longer going to pray, whatever it might be. However, what can often happen is our families will negotiate. Okay, instead of calling me once a day, call me every other day. Instead of calling me twice a day, call me once a day. Instead of visiting me once a week, visit me, whatever it might be. And what happens is we feed into that. So when people negotiate, we might find ourselves feeling guilty at this point and thinking, oh, I feel bad. When we feel guilty, we want to get rid of that guilt. Guilt's a horrible emotion to have, right? So our immediate response is, okay, that sounds better than it is now. Once a week is better than 3 times a week. Yeah, I'll do that. That's fine. So what you've done is you've changed your boundary. So if you've gone in saying, this is what I'm going to do, you need to stick to that. So you need to go in with your suggestion of what's feasible for you. So if you think, I'm going to visit home once a month, you communicate that. Now, they might not be happy with that, but we're talking about you as an adult here with your own life, with your own commitments. You're probably busy. You might be protecting your mental health, and that's why you're choosing not to visit them as often. When you put a boundary in place and someone comes and negotiates it and you move towards them, what you've shown your parents is that your boundaries are flexible. So whenever you try and set a boundary, there's going to be a negotiation around it. And until you give in, that's what's going to happen. So what you want your parents to learn is that when you say something, you're going to stick to your word. That's what it means. So you are going to visit once a month, and that's what you'll do. Now, the difficulty is there can be a level of emotional manipulation that comes with this, of, oh, I'm so upset, I'm not going to eat, or, a lot of tears, a lot of crying, I'm going to hurt myself, whatever it might be that people say, parents say, to draw you into this. Now, when that happens, again, you don't want those things to happen, you feel bad. Chances are you'll meet them halfway, or you'll meet them at their meeting point, and you'll do what they ask you to do. Of course, what happens is you end up in exactly the same position you were when you started off. You haven't made any progress. Now, what can be really hard to understand is that although your parents may be distressed and they may be making these threats about they're not going to eat, they're going to hurt themselves, just because someone says that doesn't mean it is your responsibility to fix that. We aren't talking about your child who you have a responsibility to physically keep safe. We're talking about an adult, your parent, who is more than able to eat, feed themselves, keep themselves safe. You putting this boundary in place, if they can't manage that, they need to rely on their support network. They need to find their people to speak to about it. But what you will probably find happens is if you don't give in to their demands, if you don't give in to their negotiation, whilst their distress might have started off as 100%, they're 100% distressed by your decision, if you're able to ride through your own uncomfortable feelings about how they feel, what you'll find is over time their distress level goes from 100% to maybe 90%. Flash forward a few months, a few years, the distress might have come down to 50, 40, 30, whatever. But the only way for that distress to come down is for them to learn to tolerate the distress. They have to be distressed to allow that to come down gradually over time, just like we do. If you think about when you've been through a relationship breakup and how, that feeling of heartbreak and how distressing it is, and you feel like it's never going to go away and you're never going to get over it. Over time, your distress comes down, where it might still always hurt when you think about it, but it's a lot more tolerable. Now, of course, when we talk about families, the distress is often a lot higher and it will take longer, but it's the same principle. Over time, distress will come down as long as we don't give in to it. Using the relationship analogy, you start to get over the breakup and then you message them or they message you. What happens? You're right back where you started. You're back at the initial distress level and you've got to go through the whole thing again. Whereas if you just hadn't messaged them in the first place, or if they hadn't messaged you and you'd blocked them or whatever, you'd probably be in a lot better position now, and you wouldn't be feeling as distressed as you are. So if you are trying to implement boundaries with your family, the most important thing is you go into that situation knowing what your boundary is and you stick to your boundary. So that, this isn't a healthy relationship we're talking about where it's give and take and your partner wants one thing and you want other, so you kind of come to a middle ground. We're talking about an abusive relationship, an element of control which you're trying to take back. You're trying to take control of your life back. And of course it goes without saying you wouldn't be doing any of this unless it was safe for you to do so. Once you've established that it is safe, like I say, decide what your boundaries are, communicate those, and don't give in to the negotiations or the demands. If you're finding that difficult, which it often can be, because when we feel guilty, we want to get rid of the guilt, because feeling guilty is one of the worst feelings in the world, in my opinion. Have someone help you. Go and see a therapist. You can contact me if you want me to be your therapist, but of course, there'll be a lot of therapists local to you that you can reach out to as well that will help you sit with that feeling of guilt, sit with that feeling of distress, and will help you decide what you want your boundaries to be. Good luck.